Joe was talking about how in the past he would be what he called 1,000% focused on something. If he wanted a answer from the universe, he would focus on it 1,000%. I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he's just like, nothing could deter me from continually asking the question of the universe. And I was like, wow, like really, I sat with what that meant. And he said for a month straight, he would ask the same question and live his day. Like he'd go to school and he'd come home and he'd go into like always asking that question in between thoughts. And I was like, can I have 1,000% focus on something? And what does that mean to me? And I was just like, well, that's actually pretty intense. Like, that's not just like, oh, I'm just going to say a prayer in the morning with an incense stick and ask my question and think it's just going to come to me. 1,000% focus is a lot more of a depth of intensity I got from that desire of finding an answer. Like, I don't know that desire, that strength and a desire to know.
Because you accept living life, you accept all the things that go on in every day, and every day you get up, there's new things and stuff you have to do. Yeah. But it's like opening a space inside you that this is something you're going to hold, this is something you're thinking, and this is something you want to receive. And so throughout my day, I would say a prayer or a chant or repeat the question over and over, letting the universe know this is something that I want. And I made a decision that for 1 month, this is what I'm going to do every day throughout the day until I receive the answer. And my granddad used to always tell me when I was a little boy, he says, you're really stubborn, because once I made up my mind, and I tell him sometimes I'm going to ask, and this is what I'm going to do. And I would just keep doing it until I received the answer. And I made that part of my practice. And it's sort of what they're trying to teach in some of the Buddhist meditations, and that is like, sometimes they'll get you to read a story, maybe on Om Mani Padme Hum or whoever it is, and they're teaching. And so they do all these stories and they read and you go in depth and you think about it. And then the Lama, he will take a singing bowl and he'll start and he's like, okay, we're going to meditate for 10 minutes. We're going to go into this now. Take a thought in there about the story we've been studying and see what answers and things you're given. And then you go into this meditation, you sit there for the 10 minutes and then you come out, and it's really interesting, the information and stuff that will stream through. And the Tibetan Lama in Edmonton, when I went to his place and we would do the meditations, he would do this often, and then afterwards he would ask people to share whatever it is they were receiving. And he always liked when I would, because I always got these really big downloads. And so me and him would end up sitting there afterwards and we're just talking, having big discussions and stuff. But that part of that 1,000%, there is a space inside us that when we really desire or want something, we can open. And we will make that space and we will hold and we will carry out whatever it is for a period of time. When we're really under difficult or stress and that, sometimes we'll open that space and we will focus so hard on it that the universe will bring the answer, bring changes, or do a whole bunch of things. Then once it's done, we shut it off until we get stressed or go into something really difficult again. And then the person opens it up, they go really deep inside and somehow they crack this place open and they go in there, and then after everything is better, it's just like they forget and they shut it off and they just go back into everyday things. But there's things inside us, and if you start discovering that, you can go to these places and do all kinds of magical things.
All right, so what question do you want to know where you got 1,000% focus on? Like, do you want that space in there to know God inside you, to know that truth, that space where I can go and find all the answers to the universe, like get familiar with that space? Start asking, start building that connection and to get that answer of 1,000% focus, whatever that is for you.
When I started working with the Cree elders, and I didn't speak Cree or anything, and I just started working with them. And when the elder told me what Muskopios means. And I was just doing all this stuff, helping people. And he'd say, go do this, go do that. And one day he sat me down and he says, this is what Muskopios means. It means you're serving God and you're serving all mankind. And I'm like, I really like that. So it's like, I want to be Muskopios. I want this stuff to just flow through me, and whoever needs it, I just share and give it out, or whatever I need to do with it, however it's meant to go on, just comes through for the betterment of the world or the future. And so in myself, because he would say Jesus was Muskopios, he was able to do that. Buddha was Muskopios. And there's many other people that were on the planet that evolved and did all these things to really help the planet. And he says, they're all Muskopios. And so I really liked that word because it was way deeper. It came from the Cree language. And I'm like, wow, this has got some really depth to it. And a lot of things came, and the elder, he taught me and shared a lot of stuff. There was lots that went on, and he blessed me with a lot of different things. It's like the spirits are saying this and that, and lots went on. But for me, that word was very, very profound because it had such a deeper meaning to it. Just like when I was a little boy, this Alaskan preacher, he named me Sonarak. And all my life, I went through my life, it's like, okay, what does Sonarak mean? And then finally, I came across this one lady from back home, and her parents were from Alaska. And I asked her, I says, so what does Sonarak mean? And she says, it's got 3 meanings. And I'm like, oh, really? She says, one is like a knife. And she says, it's, like the ulu. To the Eskimo, the ulu is like life in that, because you skin animals, you cut things up in that. And the woman uses it and it feeds everybody. So ulu is something very sacred and very blessed and big. And then the other one was a carver. And later in life, I carved soapstone, and I'm like, wow. And then the third one is like the sun. It's like a really, really bright light. And while I was a child, this is what the person who named me this gave me the name. And it was years later, and then I asked one of his relatives also, and his relative told me the same thing, that it means 3 things. And I'm like, when he gave me that name, that's like something really, really big, because all of it is very, very sacred in the understandings.
I have a bit of an off-topic question about religion, because it comes up a lot, the definitions of God that everybody has. So what do you think what do you see as the biggest harm in religion?
Biggest harm in religion is fear.
In any religion, fear.
Fear, and the focus on looking for the negativity instead of the light. I had to reverse that. I had to figure that out, because every time I went into something new and I would explore it, first thing my mind wanted to do was start looking for the negative. And when you do that, you start attracting it, because whatever your mind is focused on, you start bringing that in. And I was reading lots of books, and I was studying a lot of stuff. And when I went into Buddhism, I realized they had 10,000 hells, and they have hundreds of thousands of gods and demons and deities and everything. And I'm like, this is really freaky. And I'm like, but there's something really, really good about it if you're looking for the good.
It's the false preaching of love, isn't it? For all religions.
And Christianity, they make you look at the negative. They tell you to look for what to be afraid of. They don't tell you to look for the good, because if you look for the good, you're going to expand the light. You're going to bring the good that's going to transform and change everything. So every time you go into a culture and a different new belief, find the good and focus on the good, and you're going to start getting these spirits and guides and teachers, and they just keep opening up things bigger. But if you're focused and afraid, focusing on the negative, eventually that will come and it'll just keep you afraid. Then it's, how do you believe in the Creator and God if all you're looking for is something to fear?
Good question. Thanks.
Great answer.
And it's a really big one.
Yeah.
Science of Dogon, this guy traveled the world. He was seeking a lot of cultures and knowledge around the world. And he wrote a book called The Science of the Dogon. And if you read it all, when he gets to the end, he says, look for all the good. And he started seeing all the good and all the connections around the world, how all of us are connected. If you go far enough back, we all got practices in that. We might have changed the names and changed the way we practice a little bit, but in the end, we can go back to a source where we were all connected. When I went to Palenque, and we were in Palenque, and we went to, what was a temple there?
Yeah, the temple in Palenque.
Okay. So it's a big old one, and we met this archaeologist who helped them dig it up, and he says, I'm going to take you through here because you need a guide. And he was telling us all about it, and then he took us to this one area, and he says, look at all these things around here and tell me what you see. And if you look, you can see an Egyptian guy. If you look over here, you see this other one, and he's pointing them out, and you see all these different people from different parts of the world. They're all carved into this ancient building. And I'm like, I think at one time we all traveled to sacred sites and we all shared and honored this knowledge, and we took it really high, and then something brought it down, and then we separated and we went back into our own little smallness of fear. But when you're standing there and you're seeing this and you're like, and he would say, yeah, I think people came from other parts of the world on certain times and they would do ceremonies because they're carved right there into this ancient building.
And how old, do you know? How old is this
Oh, I
dated?
don't remember.
I can't remember how old he said it was, very, very old.